Hi guys, you're welcome back to my channel. My name is Stella. So in today's video, we're going to learn how to cut and sew a 6-piece skirt with tail or a gore skirt with tail. So without wasting much time, let's jump right into the video. So here are the materials that we're working with. I'm making use of the African print fabric. This is 6 years African print, and I'll be making use of this lining and interfacing as well. Then zip. So here are the things that we're working with. Now let's jump right into the video. So we're going to be making use of a skirt pattern, and I already drafted this in my previous video. I'll leave the link in the description box so you go see it. So it's just a basic long pencil skirt pattern, and we're going to be altering this to our 6 gore skirt, or the 6-piece skirt like we popularly know it. So let me take us through what I've done so far on the skirt block. I tightened the knee length with 1 inch because I'm making this for an elderly person and she will not want the outfit to be that tight. But before I proceed, let's label the block. So here is the front skirt block. I'll proceed to label it, and this is the back skirt block. So from the waist to the hip length is 9 inches, waist to knee 17 inches, and waist to the full length of the skirt is 43 inches plus 2 inches hemming allowance, giving us a total of 45 inches. Same thing applies to the back. And if you observe, there is no dart on this skirt and is intentional. I sloped the center front with 1 inch, and I sloped the center back waistline by ½ an inch. I have all this covered in the basic skirt drafting video. I already mentioned that I tightened the knee line with 1 inch. Now for the back, I shared that 1 inch into 2, so it's ½ an inch on both sides. Now here's the center back, and this is the side front and center front. So your labeling is key whenever you're drafting. So this is what I have done so far. Now let's go ahead and alter this skirt block to our 6 pieces pattern, or the 6 pieces gore skirt. Now the first measurement you need is her bust span, and to get your bust span, you're simply going to divide your bust round by 8 and you subtract 1. So her bust span is 8.5 and half of that is 4.25. So I went ahead to mark it on the waistline. Now moving over to the hip, I want the shape of the skirt to be a bit curvy. So instead of repeating half of her bust span, which is 4.25 on the hip, I'll go ahead and add 0.75 to her bust span, just so that I can have a little bit of curve around the hip. So I marked 5 inches on the hip length. And moving over to the knee, I'll go ahead and repeat her bust span on the knee. So I have 4.25 marked on the waistline. I have 5 inches marked on the hip length, and I have 4.25 marked on the knee. So this is it. Now I'll go ahead and connect these points using a straight line. You can use a slight curve if you want, but you don't need this line to be that curvy, so that you can easily join it and maintain the shape. Another important thing is to blend all sharp points. Remember, we're going to be joining this skirt back. So I'll proceed to blend this point. Now moving on, we need to extend half of her bust span to the hemline. So you remember that her bust span is 8.5 and half of that is 4.25. So I'll go ahead and mark it somewhere in the middle, and I'll also mark it on the hemline. Now I'm doing this because I don't have my long ruler within reach, so I want to use my small pattern master to connect this. So I'll go ahead and just extend half of her bust span, and this is it. I have extended it. So we're done with the front. Let's move over to the back skirt block. So moving over to the back, we're going to start with half of her bust span, which is 4.25. So I will go ahead and mark it. Now I tighten the center back with ½ an inch, and I slope the center back with ½ an inch. So I'll place my tape on the center back tightening. Now pay attention to where the tape is placed, and I'll mark 4.25, which is half of her bust span. Now we're going to move over to the hip line, and I'll also add 0.75 to that measurement. So let's move over to the knee. So moving over to the knee line, I will place my tape on the 0.5 knee line tightening that we have there. So I have my tape placed away from that 0.5 knee line tightening, and I will mark 4 inches. Now I chose to mark 4 inches so that we can have a better shape there. So I will go ahead and connect all these points. Remember that we have 4.25 on the waistline, we have 5 inches on the hip, and I have 4 inches on the knee line. Now whatever your bust span is, you can go ahead and apply the same principle and you're going to get the same result. So I'll proceed to connect all the points, and we're going to repeat the same thing that we did on the front, which is to extend the mark that we have on the knee length to touch the hemline. So whatever you have marked on your knee length, you need to extend that measurement to the hemline. And remember, we have 4 inches on our knee length, so I will mark 4 inches somewhere in the middle as well, and I will mark it on the hemline, and I will go ahead and connect it using a straight line. Now, if you have not labeled your pattern at this point, you will need to do that because it's very important. And I'll proceed to separate the two patterns so that we can do further alteration. So I'll come in with my scissors and I'm going to go ahead and cut them into two. And here we have it. Now we're going to start with the front. So I'll keep the back aside and I'll go ahead to cut out the front skirt. So here's the front skirt block. Now I will proceed to cut on our marked line. So I'll go ahead and just cut it out this way, and here we have it. Now the next thing we need to do is to reshape the front, and this is to eliminate every form of bulging since we don't have a dart on this skirt. So I'll go ahead and align the waistline and the knee line, but making sure that the center front overlaps on the side by 0.5 inch. So basically I'm taking off half an inch from the side front of the front pattern. Okay, I'm not going to cut out anything from the center front piece. I'm going to be cutting out from the side front. So you can see the way I'm trying to overlap the center front piece on the side front, only around the hip line. So I'm just trying to shape out half an inch this way. Okay, so this is what we have. Now I'll go ahead and just highlight it so that we can see it better. So, and I know the question that will be going on in your mind is, instead of doing this, why can't we just add the dart? Now adding that is another method. Reshaping it this way is also another method. Either of them will give you the same result. So this is what I shaped out. This is just half an inch. All right, and I will proceed to cut it out. Now the beauty of this is that your skirt is going to sit pretty. It won't fold or bulge around your hip area. Okay, and this is it. So the moment we're done joining this, you will see the beauty and you will appreciate it more. So this is the only reshaping that we're doing on the front. Now let's move over to the back, and I will cut out the back skirt block, and here we have it. I have cut it out. I'll also go ahead and cut on the center line that we have there. And here we have it. The back is ready. Now for the back, we're not going to reshape anything because the bulging that will happen at the back is going to accommodate the bum. So that's the whole essence of the back bulging. Now we're going to be transferring this, but it's advisable you transfer all your patterns to your lining first before transferring to your fashion fabric. So I'll come in with the lining and we're going to start our transfer. Now we're going to begin with the center front skirt pattern. So here's my lining, and I'll go ahead and fold it into two. All right, so I'll fold it into two and I will pin it down. So here it is. I have pinned it down. Now this side is on fold, and I'll go ahead and pin down the center front pattern, aligning the center front to the folded side of the lining. So your center front for a 6-piece skirt is supposed to be on fold, and this is it. I have pinned down the pattern on the lining. Now we're going to begin further alteration. So I'll go ahead and extend all the lines out. I'll go ahead and extend the waistline, extend the hip line, and extend the knee line. Okay, so the hem of the lining is the same length with the pattern. Now I'll go ahead and add ½ inch on the waist, ½ inch on the knee, and ½ inch on the hip line. So I will connect all these points. Now the ½ inch is the joining allowance. So I'll go ahead and connect the ½ inch joining allowance this way. I will still add ½ inch on the waistline for joining. So let's move over to the hemline of the skirt, which is the main deal. Now I want the width of the center front to be 12 inches. So I'll go ahead and place my tape on the pattern paper and I'll measure 12 inches. So the 12 inches includes the width of the pattern paper that we have already. And this is it. So, and I'll proceed to connect it using a straight line. Now I needed to point it out that the 12 inches center front width includes the width of the pattern paper. So I measure from the pattern paper onto the lining. Now here we have it. So we need to reshape the hem of that line so that it will not be that pointy. So I'll go ahead and measure the entire width. Remember what we have there is 12 inches. So half of it is 6 inches and I'll make a mark there. Now on the side, I'll come up by 1.5 inches and I will use a slight curve to connect from the 1.5 inches to the 6 inches center that we have there. Now I decided to use my free hand. So here we have it and I will go ahead and cut this out.
Yeah.
And here we have it. Now whenever you're making a 6 pieces outfit, it's advisable you make the skirt first because fabric like this can be used when making the blouse. So you need to make your skirt first before making the blouse so that you don't end up exhausting all the fabric. So I'll also go ahead and cut out the waist and here we have it. And at this point you will need to notch all your points. So the notching will guide you when it's time to join. So I'm notching it in 0.25 on the waist and on the hip. So I'll keep the center front aside and we will come in with the center back. So here's the center back pattern and also the lining. And as usual, I have the lining folded into two and I have the center front placed in the middle of the lining. So I'm extending the lines out. I have extended the waistline, the hip line and the knee line. And I will also extend it on both sides. Remember, the center back lining is wide enough to accommodate both the flare and the tail. So this is it. Now we're going to start from the center back, which is where the zip will be. So I will go ahead and mark my 1 inch zip allowance on the waistline, on the hip line and on the knee. And I will proceed to connect it. So I'll go ahead and connect the zip allowance. Remember, so this is it. Now let's move over to the tail. Remember what we have around the zip area is the tail. And for the width of the tail, I want the width to be 7 inches. So I'll go ahead and place my tape after the pattern paper. Pay attention, the tape is placed after the pattern paper. Unlike the center front where we measured including the pattern paper. For the tail, I placed it after the pattern paper and I marked 7 inches. Now I will go ahead and connect it using a straight line from the knee line to that 7 inches. And this is our tail. So here we have it. I have connected the tail. Now at this point, your labeling will guide you. Remember, this is the center back of the skirt. So this other side is where we're going to be joining to the side back. So what we will be adding there is simply ½ inch allowance. So I'll go ahead and mark ½ inch joining allowance on the waist, on the hip and on the knee. And I will connect it using a straight line. Remember, this is the part that we're going to be joining to the side back. So what we have there is ½ inch allowance. Now, I want the width also to be 12 inches. So the width of the flare at the hemline is 12 inches. And I'm measuring including the pattern paper. So I have my tape placed on the pattern paper outward and I have 12 inches marked there. So I'll go ahead and connect it using a straight line. Now you need to pay attention to the emphasis I'm making where I have the tape placed after the pattern paper and on the pattern paper. So this is it. And I will also go ahead and cut out the back. But before cutting out, here are a few tips that can help you. First is that it's advisable you pin down the lining or the fabric very well before you cut out. So that's it. And I'll also add my ½ inch on the waistline, remember, and I will connect it. So this is it. I'll proceed to cut this out. So at this stage, it's only your notch that can guide you. If not, you're going to be a bit confused on which side is which. So we will be notching all these points as we proceed. But first, let's notch the zip allowance. Remember, we have 1 inch as our zip allowance there, so I'll go ahead and just notch it there, and I will also notch it on the center back. All right, now the knee length, I'm going to give it a slight cut in by 0.25. Now I will go ahead and cut the side back. And here we have it, the center piece is ready. Now we'll move over to notch. Remember the side that we're going to be joining to the side back, I will notch it in 0.25 in. So the moment I see a notch, a cut in, I will know that that's the part I'm joining. So we're going to keep this aside, and I will come in with the pattern for the side back. So this is the side back pattern, and I also have a pin down on the lining. Now, as usual, I will extend the line. So I have the waistline extended on both sides. I'm extending the hip line on both sides as well, and the same thing applies to the hip line. So we're going to start from the joining side. So I'm going to add 1/2 inch joining allowance on the joining side. I know why I'm referring to it as the joining side, and I will connect it also using a straight line. And here we have it. Let's move over to the hemline. So I want the width of the side back to be 8 inches. So I'll come in with my tape, and I have it placed after the pattern paper. So I'll go ahead and make a mark there and connect it using a straight line to the knee. Remember, the width of this flare is 8 inches. So this is it. And we're also going to add our side seam allowance, and I'm using 2 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark it on the waist, on the hip, on the knee, and I will connect them first. So I'm connecting the side seam allowance. Now, if you remember our skirt class, from the hip line, I like to come down by 1.5 inches just so that I can get an even curve around the hip, and this will eliminate every form of bulging. So I just came down by 1.5, and I also marked the 2 inches side seam allowance there. So I will go ahead and connect it, and I'll use a slight curve to finish up that line, and this is beautiful. The moment you join this skirt, you will not experience any form of bulging around the hip. So let's move over to the hemline, and I want the width of the side flare to be 12 inches, just like we did on the center front. So I'm measuring from the pattern paper onto the lining. So I'm measuring everything, including the pattern paper, and what I have there is 12 inches. So I'll go ahead and connect it from the knee to the 12 inches mark, and here we have it. Now you need to pay attention to where I placed the tape. So remember that this is the part that we're going to be joining to the center back of the skirt, and here is the side back of the skirt. I also added 2 inches as my side seam allowance. Now at the hemline, I marked 12 inches, which includes the pattern paper. Now I'll go ahead and mark joining allowance on the waist, which is 1/2 inch, and I will connect it using a straight line. Now I will proceed to cut this out. So another issue that most people have when sewing a 6-piece skirt is that when joining it, most of the time, you notice that one may be longer or shorter than the other. But if you pay attention to every step of the way, measuring and ensuring that they are all equal, you will not run into that issue. So let's proceed with the notching. I'll go ahead and notch, cut in 0.25, which is the joining side, and the side back, I will notch it this way. So the notches, once I see them, I already know the joining part. Now I lost my clip for the side front, but it's the same thing that I did on the side back. So it's the same 8 inches and 12 inches flare width. Now I have gone ahead to transfer all the pattern to the fabric, and here we have it. I also ironed down my interfacing on it, and the interfacing will help to give your skirt that that structure that you're looking for. Now this is it. So this is the side front piece, and I ironed down my interfacing on it as well. The same thing on the center front and on the side back. So I will go ahead and bring the center back so that we will begin our joining process. Moving over to the joining process, I'll go ahead and join the two side back pieces to the center back on 1/2 inch. I'll repeat the same thing on the lining. I'll also join the side front to the center front, and I will press the stitches open. And here we have it. I have joined them. Now you need to iron as much as you can. So I have joined it, and I've also shaped the side. Remember, we added 2 inches side seam allowance, so I cross-check the measurements and I have joined the sides. Now the joining process is actually super easy. So I have it joined. I've joined the lining separate and the fashion fabric separate. Now we're going to go ahead and wear the lining into the fashion fabric, but you need to wear the right side of the lining into the fashion fabric. So in summary, you're going to place them the right sides facing each other inside. Now the next thing is to stitch the hemline, and I already have a super detailed video on how you can extend your lining outward so that your fashion fabric is not showing immediately. Okay, so I have that detailed video, and we have a formula for that, which is you multiply your hemming allowance that you added by 2 and you subtract 1. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the same principle here as well, and I will stitch round the hemline. Now in doing this, you also need to align all your joinings. So I'll go ahead and join it. Now let's look at the waistband, because I want the skirt to have a waistband. So I went ahead to cut out this piece of fabric, and I already interfaced it. So in total the width is 1.75, but by the time I use 1/2 inch to join it, I'll be left with 1.25. So that's the actual width, the final width of the band that I want. So I will go ahead and join the skirt first, then I'll take us through how to attach the band. And here we have it. I have stitched round the hemline. Remember our principle. Now I don't want to say too much about that. I think it's a video that every fashion designer needs to watch or needs to practice if you're not already doing that. So this is it, and I have stitched it. Now if you can see, I have the lining extended outward. So this is me just giving you a little tip of what that video is about. So this is the actual way to join it. That is if you want the fashion fabric to extend inwards. If you don't, you can just go ahead and join both the fashion fabric and the lining at 1/2 inch. Okay, now I'll proceed to turn the skirt outward. Now you need to do this carefully so that you don't twist the lining inside. So these are the tiny tips that you need to observe when sewing a 6-piece skirt, because they can frustrate you easily. Now, I'll go ahead and just pull the lining inwards, ensuring that it's not twisted at all. So this is it, and I will proceed to iron the hemline. So you need to iron properly, especially using a steam iron. It will make your life easy. So moving over to the waist, remember we're going to be attaching a waistband to this. So I will go ahead and join together the fashion fabric and the lining. So I'll stitch it round so that it becomes a single piece. Now I will come in with the band, but if you are not going to be attaching your band, go ahead and use your lining to turn the fashion fabric around the waist. But I want to attach a band to mine. So I will go ahead and fix it, and fixing a band is still the same method of fixing a bishop collar. So I will stitch. I like to always stitch from the wrong side to the right side. So I'll go ahead and stitch it round on the wrong side, and afterwards I will move it to the right side, and I'll finish up the waistband. Joining of waistband is the same method of joining your bishop collar. So I think that's the easiest way to explain it. So I'll go ahead and do that and give this skirt a good press. And here we have it. You can see the watermark. This is the evidence that I pressed it properly. So let's look at the hemline. Now this is the beauty of this skirt. And like I said, if you don't want your fashion fabric to be pulled inwards like this, go ahead and join the fashion fabric and the lining at 1/2 inch together. Okay, so let's look at the waistband. Now can you see that the band, they are both on the same line? So this is part of the things that you should observe as a fashion designer that is paying attention to details. Now let's look at the inside of the skirt. So you can see the importance of pressing your stitches open is that the moment you're done, you don't have to press too much again. So you can see how everywhere is looking clean. Now let's see the waistband as well. You can see even on the wrong side they're still aligning. Now I like to leave this tiny hole because this is where I turn the skirt from, but you can either leave it around the zip or close it and open a little space around the side, so that you can turn the outfit from there, and afterwards you tack it. It's always advisable you tell your client where that tacked area is, so that they can easily access it when they want to adjust the skirt in the future. So this is it. You can see that our shape that we did on the center front. And like I said, if you don't want yours to come out this way, you can just go ahead and use your bust span all the way to the hem. So this is it. Here's the skirt on the mannequin. Now a detailed video on the blouse will also be up on the channel very soon. So it's a video you need to see, because it includes a lot of sewing techniques. You guys know, updated sewing techniques as usual. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you so much. Can you give this video a like and share it with your sewing group and with your friends, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.